You're watching the Retro Lube channel.
Put a snare to bass, correct?
I actually have a funny story relating to New York City about Leonard Bernstein, though. So I got asked to play bass with a singer named Shai Coltrane on a tour she was doing in the U.S. It was her first big U.S. tour. It was one of my first tours where I'm going out, playing out around the whole country. Coming into New York City, I'm in my hotel room. I get a call from Gordon Perry, who's in the Israel recording the Israeli Philharmonic, saying, "Joe, this is Gordon, and I just phoned Leonard Bernstein to let him know that you're in town." Says, and he's going to be coming to your show tonight. I'm playing bass for Shai Coltrane. We're playing like the Bitter End or one of the little tiny old clubs like that, underground, little tiny little spot. So he said, "Can you put him on the guest list for us?" I said, +2. Was that? Oh, sure, okay. Thanks, Gordon, okay. So, I get to the club, it was a little dive, and, we do our sound check, and, the manager asks anybody, "Do you have a guest list for tonight?" I go, "Yeah, Leonard Bernstein +2. And, I go, "Okay." Well, he didn't laugh. He just kind of walked away, and I thought, well, I'll give him my guest list. And, I'm backstage and we're waiting to go on. All of a sudden he comes running through the club. "Leonard Bernstein just came in the room." I said, "Yeah, he's on my guest list. What's wrong?" He was like, he thought I was kidding. So it was hilarious. There we are playing with Leonard Bernstein sitting there, and he put a rose in my hair. I mean, that's when I had the big fro. You remember the big fro?
Sure do.
Still getting remarks about that. He brought a rose and put it in my hair. It was funny. It was a fun night.
But it really says something about Ambrosia, that people like the great Leonard Bernstein, that you guys stayed in touch over the years, and that we all got invited to his apartment.
Sure.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. I mean, you could argue with him about music. You could, he was open.
Now, obviously, from the sound check that we recorded, you have done Magical Mystery Tour, but you do have more of a connection with the Beatles in the sense that you recorded at Abbey Road Studios, and that one of your producers, Alan Parsons, who has a Beatles connection.
Huge, yeah. Well, Alan was the recording engineer on he was the second engineer on the Beatles record.
Yeah, his credentials with the Beatles were, he started off as a tape op was what they called it. Before they had a remote control for the tape machine, they had a kid, the youngest,
who would work the machine.
Yeah.
Record, run back.
Instead of having a button you pushed up here, they would say, "Record, stop, rewind,
go back
play."
to the second
You had to
take.
do it
Let me
off
hear the third take, and the guy would know where all started.
Yeah.
So that's where he started. Like most engineers, they start off as interns and move up, the chain.
Did he have any stories to share with you about the Beatles, Alan?
You know what? His connection with the Beatles, again, wasn't that great. He did record later on. The thing that we were interested in at the time, of course, with Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
What happened because that was the album at the time when we met him. That was just, it's one of the biggest albums of all time. That we wanted to know the stories. One of the funniest stories to me was when he was talking about their demeanor in the studio. Pink Floyd, I guess they're all really pretty serious. Their music is kind of crazy at times, but they're very, very serious and kind of dry. He said, so they're in the studio and he's doing the solo for money, which is this, awesome guitar solo. After it was done, the guy gets on the talkback and goes, "Yeah, I think that'll do." This thing that becomes this soul that everybody raves about.
The funny story I heard about was from who's the second engineer that worked for the Floyd? A good friend. James Guthrie, who produced
Right.
our last album.
That
James
Rhode
Guthrie.
Island.
Oh, when you meant second engineer.
Yeah, I
thought you
mean
meant-
the second. Yeah.
No, he was the lead engineer for The Wall.
So-
He recorded The Wall.
James Guthrie told me that he went out to talk to Nick Mason once, the drummer, and he drew a circle on the snare drum in the center of the snare drum. He goes, Nick, if you could hit it more consistently in this little spot, I could get a better sound, you know. And Nick looked at him and goes, yeah, he goes, that and timekeeping, you know, not my forte. I'm much better at the after gig party.
And there's more of a Pink Floyd connection with Ambrosia because didn't Ralph Steadman,
Yeah. He did
an
that.
artist, do your Rhode Island cover?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but Ralph didn't do the Pink Floyd
Oh,
one.
did Grateful
no.
Dead maybe?
No, he
No,
did
no, no,
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
What's he doing?
He, I think what it is there's a similarity in the style of Ralph Steadman and the guy who did one of the Pink Floyd album covers, but it wasn't Ralph Steadman. Ralph Steadman,
Oh, he did
Playing
Fear and
the-
Loathing in Las Vegas.
yeah, he did
Okay.
artwork for that book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and he's done a lot of. There's some wineries now that in California they have Ralph Steadman
Really?
wine things.
We went to his studio out in the country
In
England.
Kent. It was in Kent.
Took a train out, but it was amazing. Big studio, big room, and you know, way down toward the end of it on the wall, there was this thing like hanging down on the wall. Kind of looks animalish. So we go down there, and it's hanging from the wall with a nail through its head. Was probably the biggest rat I'd ever seen, just nailed to the wall, and it was just hanging there, and it was just
Forgot that.
decomposing, and he was just studying. He was just studying how it decomposed, and that, you know, it was like his textbook, you know, how to draw something decomposing like that.